as you can see, Natasha is checking out the 550 Spyder to see what needs doing on it. And today is a day where I'm going to do a job that has been waiting for a year or more. A year ago, I bought a Pertronix electronic ignition sensor to put in the distributor, and I just never got around to doing it. And I figured today I would do it, even though there's absolutely nothing wrong with the ignition on the car. I'm going to put this electronic ignition in and see if it works better than it did in the Triumph, because as you'll see in my other video, I had to replace the one in the Triumph because it just kept losing the timing, but I have a feeling it wasn't quite the right kit for the distributor. Anyway, Natasha and I are going to do this today, and it's actually one of the things that's on the board, isn't it? To begin with on this, I am going to actually take the distributor out of the car and do it on the bench. A couple of reasons for this. First one is the distributor isn't very accessible, and I have to take the condenser off the side of it, which I think would be very difficult there, because this engine is turned around from where it would normally be on a Beetle. So I'm going to pull out the distributor and then do it on the bench. The second reason why I'm doing that is I've got a dodgy back at the moment, and if I try to do it in place, it would involve a lot of bending over. Now, I don't know a lot. Let me rephrase that. I don't know anything about these VW engines, but my understanding is that if I undo that nut there, which is a 13mm, takes a 13mm socket, I can just pull the distributor out and not have to worry about upsetting the timing. So let's see how this works. Now I've got to be very careful not to lose the nut here. So I think I'm going to stick my hand in there and pull it off. We'll put that up there so I can knock it off at some other point. And it looks like there's a washer on there. There is. Right, so now we have to unplug the condenser wire. There's another wire on the negative terminal there, and that's white. I have no clue what that is, but I'm guessing, and this is a guess, guessing that that is for the tachometer. We will see. So now we need to take the distributor cap off, and we don't undo any of these wires off it. Let's move that off out of the way. Now in theory, this whole unit should just lift straight out. And there you have it. That was easy. Let's go over to the bench. So here I have my Pertronix Ignitor kit, which has been sitting in a box, as I said, I think it's over a year. And this is what you get. You get this unit that replaces your points and instructions, which we'll read after the fact. You get this little thing that goes over the rotor and has 4 magnets in it, and that's what triggers the sensor here. And you get a screw to screw it down in, because this should fit in to the distributor. And the logic of taking this distributor out completely, one, it would have been impossible to get at the screw to remove the condenser with it in place. Two, as this is clamped here, when we bolt it back down, it's going to be in exactly the same orientation because these nubs are offset and there's only one way that that can go in. Clever, devilish clever, these Germans. So I'm going to put this in a vise. Let's show you inside what we've got here first. Let's pull the rotor off. You get the rotor, that little dust cap, and then you see this center bit is turned by the engine. These are your points here that open and close because there's a little cam on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this mechanism out, put this in its place. It's that simple. What I'm going to do first of all is remove the condenser and associated wiring because we don't need that, and that you do by undoing this screw here, which would have been impossible to get at with the car in place. It's bad enough here on the bench because I'm having to do this left-handed because of the way I've put this in place. There we go. So let's take that screw out, and we're going to save everything just in case we have to refit it all. So with that done, you can just pull the condenser off. Let's take this little bit of wiring off on the inside. That there is the wire connected to the point, and then this thing should just pull out. We'll help it from the inside a little bit. It's just a little rubber stopper. So that is our condenser, which we don't need for the electronic ignition. So that bit I'm taking out, keeping the screw. So now we're going to undo the points just by unscrewing this screw, which of course does not want to unscrew. There we go. So that screw is the adjusting screw to set the points gap. So there's a screw and a washer, and now we can lift the points out. So those are my points, and you can see here how these work. These open and they don't open and close that wide, but they open and close, and you get a spark across it, and then that is what carries the high voltage spark over to the spark plugs. So now we're left with absolutely nothing, and this should fit back in. There is a little nub here which fits in this hole here, I hope. And then, there we go. And then we have a screw to go in there to screw it in place. And that's it. So that was very straightforward. We now get this little doodad, which fits over this part here. And you can see that there are cams on this, and this is not perfectly round. So we find where it'll fit down, and then that slides all the way down. Now, the main problem I had with the one on my Triumph is that the rotor would then not sit properly on the spindle. It was sat too high. This one actually feels pretty good, but we will see when this thing is back in the car. But that is it. All we have to do now is fit these wires, and you want to make sure these wires go around the outside and don't foul on this rotating magnet, because that would not be good. It would wear on them. So I'm going to put you down, I'm going to push this through and fit it, and then show you the finished item. And there you have it. Here you can see the wires going around the outside. There is no correct orientation for this because there are 4 magnets 90 degrees apart. The grommet comes all the way through. There are 2 wires ready to connect up. All that we have to do now is we have to put this little lid on. Not sure what that does. And we have to put this rotor cap on, and that's it. We're ready to go. That literally took 5 minutes, and 2 minutes of that was putting the camera down and picking it up. I would highly recommend doing this on the bench. It's so much easier than trying to fiddle around bent over in the car with everything in the way. And while I'm here, I'll take the opportunity to clean it up a bit. And there we have it, one cleaned up distributor ready to go back in from whence it came. I've also cleaned up a little bit in there, and this puppy should drop straight into place. I'll switch hands here, and then we just push it down, make sure all these wires are out of the way, make sure that this boy is engaged. There it is, it's in place. There we go. So now just pushing this enough to get engaged, I remembered it was kind of in this direction, just enough to get that engaged, and this is seated. Our timing should be exactly right. There is a little bit of play in this bracket. I mean, so we'll see. I mean, it's going to be close. It's probably needed adjusting anyway. All we need to do is put this nut and bolt back on, put the cap on, and wire it up. I will just put this nut and bolt on, then I'll be back. So there we have it. It's bolted back into the exact same position it was before. I didn't take any of the wires off the cap, so the cap fits back on as it was before. We make sure these clips fit on it. This is difficult to do one-handed. Right, so I'm going to have to do that. Let me just clip this down and then I'll be back. Well, that's a squeeze to get those back on there. It's just because everything's back to front on this car. So now we have these two wires. So the red one goes to the positive terminal, and of course, because you can't see it, it all has to be done by feel. There they are. And the black one goes to the negative terminal. These wires are a little long. I may actually cut them down. So this one, let's get these spark plug wires out of the way. So the black one connects to the negative terminal. And that, as they say, is that. Now, as I said, I'm assuming that this white wire is for the tack, and I'm not sure if that's going to create any problems. It really is that simple to do. But of course, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. So here we go. Let's see what happens when we start this up. Well, that is amazing. It worked first time. Actually started a lot easier than it did with the points in there, and it seemed very noisy. That's because I've got the hood open behind me, but it works. So all that we need to do now is take it out for a test drive. I can't do that today. There's too many cars in the way. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this. We hope you found it useful. If you did, give us a thumbs up, give us an oily thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and leave any comments below. Cheers.